Hello, good evening.
It's time for the Everyman podcast. So sit back, it's time to get your brain relaxed. So tune in almost every week as we share our thoughts that it's okay to speak. It's the Everyman, but it's for everyone. Making mental health priority one. But it's for everyone, making mental health priority one.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Everyman podcast. What a day. First, I'm going to start off by saying we do have a very special guest, and we have our very own Shaun Baker. Shaun, how are you feeling tonight after what has been nothing but a delay? And a lot of it is on me, so I'm really sorry.
It's been absolutely horrible, to be honest, Lou. You've done absolutely nothing to help my anxiety. I'm on my third cup of chamomile tea, and they've been double tea bags. So
I'm
thank
so
you
sorry,
very
mate.
much, mate. Lack of sleep last night and just emotional, well, not emotional all day, but just thinking about this all day.
Yeah.
I'm ready to
First,
go. I am ready to
yeah.
go, though.
Good. I will say I am really sorry. Just to set the scene. So obviously you announced earlier that we were going live at 7:30, and then I have had the train journey of delay. Firstly, there was a young girl on the tracks who was trying to commit suicide. Now, given that the time of year, obviously it's Suicide Prevention Month and World Suicide Prevention Day yesterday. Our thoughts are with that girl and hope she's absolutely okay and fine. That's the first big one. And with both of those things being happening at the moment, we hope that everyone out there who listens to the podcast, that you're okay, that you're feeling well, you've got roots to speak up and get the help that you need, because I think that's also really important to say as well. I'm conscious of time and it's slightly later, and Shaun has been waiting very patiently for a
Not
while to start
not
this.
waiting, just pacing, mate. Just
Just
pacing.
pacing.
Pacing will
Yeah.
do, yeah.
Yeah. But before we get into your story, which firstly, I think it's incredibly brave that you are going to talk about it. Dean, how are you with your nice messy hair? Because looks like you're rocking a new fro today. It's like a new form of messy hair.
Nah, I just went swimming, mate, and then I didn't do my hair properly afterwards, as I rarely do. To be fair, you probably count on one hand how many times I have my hair done since you've known me.
Yeah, me too.
But good, mate.
Me too.
Just been hammering the gym and exercising, feeling good.
Good. No, that's great news. Okay. I'm really conscious to get into this again because I think the sooner we start talking, we can all feel relaxed, especially Shaun, given the fact I've made him pace around the house for a while to talk about this episode. Firstly, Shaun, before we get into your story, you are someone new on the podcast,
Yeah.
and the guests, the listeners will recognize you potentially from the previous episode we did with Angela Todd, where we spoke all about happiness and ultimately trying to find your happiness. And you did touch a little bit on the podcast previously around why you wanted to join the podcast, but I think this is your chance, giving it to your episode, to tell us essentially why.
Yeah, I mean, I think mainly to learn, to educate myself, is speaking to all of these doctors, physios, people from all different walks of life,
Yeah.
and take some inspiration from different stories and get the chance to ask sort of questions firsthand of what I actually want to ask these people rather than listening to it on a podcast. And then sometimes I'd listen to a podcast and think, well, oh, why haven't I asked this or why haven't I asked that? That's what I would like to know. So yeah, just to educate myself, but also to try and help people by speaking up and sharing experience and times that have potentially been difficult in my life, and hopefully encourage others to do the same, because sort of a problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it?
No, absolutely. I think one thing I would say is we've spoken quite a lot since we started the Everyman podcast,
Yeah,
and you were someone who was always really interested in the types of conversations we were having. And
yeah,
I've found myself having lots of those similar conversations with you, irrespective of being on a podcast. So you
yeah,
already
yeah,
had like a real natural sort of inquisitiveness to be involved and talk about health anyway.
yeah. No, definitely. I think it's something I'm being interested in. I think part of my own journey, like at one point, I had to like really educate myself on thinking positively and stuff like that. So I'm always thinking about these things. Sometimes probably a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, um, yeah, mate. I enjoy them conversations as well.
Yeah. I think you enjoy them probably more than Dean does.
Yeah, yeah. And these conversations, isn't he?
Yeah, for someone who has been involved in a health podcast for 18 months, he is literally the guy who only enjoys the health conversation when he's in it. Outside of it, yeah. Would that be fair to
Yeah.
say, Dean?
Hi. I'm just here for the health and fitness stuff, mate. And just to lend a helping hand to anyone that needs it. But aye, health and fitness for me, like.
Yeah, no, I get it. Well, health, it's a good place to start there. Health being more than just physical health. And I think tonight's story and you sharing your experience, Shaun, is probably to talk about some of your experience with your health. And I think a great place to start, being honest, would be for you to go probably back to the start of your
Yeah,
journey
I think,
around what your health
yeah,
journey's been.
yeah. So I think like the reason I want to share my story as well is it's just to make a bit more awareness that it is National Suicide Prevention Month, and it's really, really important to speak up about your problems. I've learned that more than anyone, I think. Well, just
Mhm.
as much as some people, but for my own journey, it's been really, really important to speak up. And I'd like to encourage as many people as they can who are struggling to just talk to someone. It's really, really important. I went, I've struggled nearly all of my life with a gambling addiction. And I feel like I'm in a really, really good place now. I'm 2.5 years gamble free. I really want to help others, and I really want to help others realize that you don't have to be ashamed that you've potentially got an addiction or a problem, um, in that it's a normal thing to do and it's sort of not your fault. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Lou.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and I think why me and you have, well, certainly why you've resonated for me and my story so much is because I obviously struggled with something very similar. I struggled with gambling addiction, and
Yeah,
we've spoke about this at length outside of a podcast quite a lot
yeah,
around how you're possibly a little bit further in time in your
yeah,
journey from me. And I think time gives us real clarity of understanding why we were addicted and
yeah,
why and how that impacted our life,
yeah,
and allows us to reflect more on who that person was back then versus who this person is now. And I
yeah,
think your reason for wanting to talk is a huge reason why I wanted to talk about mine as well. That I never wanted someone to feel how I felt back then.
yeah,
And I know that's something that you're really passionate about, because when I was going through my struggles, especially over this past year and when we spoke about it, you've allowed me to think about my addiction and how I was feeling in a slightly different perspective. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure when you get into your story, there'll be lots of things that people get from that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's good to sort of start at the start because I think a lot of addiction sort of comes from early ages of life and then, like sort of childhood trauma, should we call it?
Yeah, yeah.
So going back to the very start, so I'm an only child, bit of a miracle child. My mum
Mhm.
was told she couldn't have kids,
Oh,
and our pop Sean at 30, my mum was 36. Um, that's the sort of only thing I know from back then. The earliest memory I have from being young is my dad and my mum split up when I was 6. I don't know what the sort of relationship was like with my parents from a personal point of view back then, because I couldn't remember anything. But I do remember my dad leaving and stuff like that. And then my relationship with my dad become very distant. We'd see each other once a week. It was a Wednesday. We'd go to my nana's. I'd have dinner like with me nana and like my granddad and my dad, and then I would sort of get dropped back off my mum's. I never really stayed over or anything like that. And yeah, I think that was probably the start of like, I don't know, like something was missing like in my life, like I should have had a dad that like a dad in the house, like, and I sort of didn't. And so like I can't really remember much. I had quite a good childhood. In terms, I was really fortunate. My mum's side of the family, they are really, really close. Everybody lives in the same street. My grandma's house was next door, and it was like the hub of the family. So everybody went there every night. We spent every night together as a family, basically. My mum had three brothers, and two of them were like sort of father figures to us. And yeah, really, really grateful that I had that at the time, because I learned a lot about how being a man was from them as well at that time, and learning
Yeah.
how to take a bit of like of jip from people as well, and how it is with groups of lads. You just like sort of you mess on, and everything was a massive joke, and like in that house, and I've got some amazing memories from there. Loved me football as a child. I think looking back, I think I took a lot of me sort of, maybe it's like me aggression out on the football pitch from when I was young. I don't know if you can relate to that.
Yeah, can see you
Yeah,
from you.
yeah,
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 I think it almost became a way of coping with my emotions. Same as what
yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying. Like you took your aggression out of it. I probably took some of my struggles in life out on football
yeah,
too. It was definitely a
yeah. But
release.
yeah, 100%. And then like my relationship with my dad continued as normal. Like we'd see each other once a week all the time, basically. And then like I think maybe it's around the age of 12. Sort of my dad's family, they like a bet. So like I think around that age, I would go around on a Wednesday, and I would pick horses out of a newspaper, and like there was no intention from my dad's family, obviously, to sort of like, look, this is a
To get
problem.
you hooked.
They
It's
didn't
something you
realize,
do,
because
though, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
the people do
it's
that.
something to do. It was just part of their like family culture sort of thing. And um, I don't even think many of them have actual like gambling addictions. They did it just for fun, and I didn't think they seen any sort of problem, because they didn't sort of have a problem with it. So there's like no blame from that side or anything like that. I think I was just in that situation, and then but I got loads of thrill and excitement from that. So at the time, I would be like, it used to be teletext back then, and like we'd be waiting for the horse race to come in, and then I'd be like, right, what price is me horse and stuff like that. And this was at like 12 years old, and I used to get buzzing on a Wednesday to go and sort of go to me nana's, get me tea, and I'd be always buzzing to pick horses out of a newspaper, and that was from like a really, really young age.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then like that continued like for years, and it was probably just fun back then to us, because it wasn't my money I was playing with. Go on.
What sort of age were you then when it first
So
started?
I think around 12. I think
12.
maybe it's 12. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's when it started, and then like when I got so like it just continued like that. It was never my money I was using, but I think when I got a 16, was that when you got like, was it what was it called,
EMA.
EMA,
EMA,
an
yeah.
EMA allowance? So
30
30
quid or
like,
pound a
whatever.
week.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, but
£30 a week. So yeah, I got like
The good old
a
days when you
the
were
good
rich on
old
30
days.
quid.
Yeah, you could spend that money on absolutely everything back then,
You could
couldn't
you
you?
could go out for food, a full
Yeah.
weekend on the drink.
Yeah, so when I got 16, I got a fake ID, and every week I would get me £30, and I would just get the bus to town and not save me dinner money up what I got from my mum and everything like that, and just spend everything I had on gambling, basically.
Mm.
Um, And I think at that age, like I was like subconsciously, I think I was maybe looking for the connection with my dad. I was missing a connection with my dad, and I think we're related in that way, that we both enjoyed doing that. And I think I was maybe chasing that a little bit. So yeah, that's how it started, and I didn't even know it was a problem then. Like I don't even well, it was a problem because of how often I was doing it. But yeah,
I've got a question. So,
yeah,
when you reflect back on you being addicted to gambling and your whole time period,
yeah.
how much do you think that early part of picking horses without potentially the risk of losing your money, how much do you think that impacted you then potentially being addicted to it? Because you never really learned the risk. Do you think
Yeah,
between now and you
yeah,
were
I wasn't like, yeah, like nobody ever taught us the risk and it used to give us so much excitement, like, and I think that excitement, I just because it went on for a long period of time when I was young, it become a habit
yeah,
potentially, you know, and then when it got to an age where I was in control of my own finances, like, I thought was already way ahead of everybody else in this game or this business idea that I had to make loads of money and do all this research, and then it just like, yeah, it just snowballed, mate. Like, um, I think when I got to like 18, I think like it become worse where like I was just I was drinking, I was getting up to no good. I was just trying to block out my emotions. I wasn't particularly happy back then. I stopped playing football. I think when I was around 17, 18, and I was really good. I used to love football when I was younger. I went to study business studies in college. I used to love business studies in school. I'd done like 12 weeks, but then all I wanted to do was earn money so I could bet. So I went and got myself a job. And I kept all of this to myself. I don't think I was aware at the time that it was happening. Um, but I had to tell me mum when I was 18 because once I got a job, I agreed to give me mum like £20 a week board, and I was working at the golf course. It was actually a wicked job. On the driving range where you go and collect all the golf balls in the buggy. So I
yeah,
think when I was 17, I got a job doing that in the summer, and it was absolutely unreal. I'd never
Was that
driven
Wall's End?
anything. I at Wall's
Yeah,
End.
it's cush that.
I'd never driven anything before, so I was like in my element, pulling skids in this little gator and everything. But yeah, anyways, that was my source of income at the time. So, um, and I remember there was one night back then when I've been paid, and it was the last day of the month, and I got a full month's wage. And I'm pretty sure back then it was only like 450 quid, but to a 17-year-old at that
yeah. You think
time,
you're rich?
I was like, I'm rich. I was like, oh, you know what? I'll nip in William Hill and I'll just put a little bet on. But I obviously need to give me mum £80 back then, for my month's board, and I spent everything within an hour, absolutely everything. Like 17-year-old, 18-year-old.
Fucking hell, mate.
So I just didn't know what to tell me mum. So at the time, I sat down and I told me mum.
But
I
did you?
said, look,
Do you remember that conversation?
yeah, it just started with tears. Yeah, it started with tears because I felt like I felt like I'd let her down because I don't like it, like I had money to give her and I didn't have it to give her.
Mm.
So, and I didn't know how to express it. So yeah, it started with tears, and it was difficult. And I think I went all out there saying like I've got a gambling addiction, even though I didn't feel like that at the time. But I just wanted to sugarcoat the fact that I'd spent that £80 basically.
Hmm.
Mm.
So we had that conversation, and I stopped for 8 weeks. My uncle Mick, who was a massive like father figure in my life, he was really, really, really supportive. He took us to the doctors and said, "Look, we can go and get you help." He got us to list down all of the pluses and the negatives to gambling, how it was making us feel. But like I was like sort of half listening a little bit. I was stopping because I got a fright from not being able to pay my mum.
Hmm.
But like I think back then it's hard to like sort of relate to exactly how I was feeling because it was so long ago, and I feel like the full journey's been like a bit of a blur.
Mm.
Um, But yeah, so I started, and then I stopped for 8 weeks, and then I just sort of continued after that to sort of gamble again. I just got into it, and it went on for years. Like, so
I have a
I was
question.
yeah,
So, you touched on something, how you, and this, I can relate to this in my story a little bit, how I told lots of lies,
mhm,
either how I was thinking, how I was feeling,
yeah,
masking how I felt, and that was along the way of gambling. But that, you said, said to your mum that you have a gambling addiction, more of
yeah.
the fear of letting her down.
Yeah, it wasn't coming from a personal point of view at that stage.
Just to get away with it.
It was coming to sugarcoat the fact that I'd lost the £80 that I needed to give her, even
Yeah,
though it was clear to see now, looking back, at that time I had a gambling addiction,
you
but
weren't acceptant of it.
I wasn't even thinking of it. I was just trying to get out of as much trouble as I could at the time, I think.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
One thing around that, which I think's really interesting, actually,
yeah,
is, and that you'll probably cover this as you go through, but
yeah,
do you feel like as a gambling addict, you were constantly trying to, especially even at an early stage, because I don't really remember my early gambling.
yeah,
I only remember when it got really bad. So I am
yeah.
really interested in this answer. Do you feel even back then you were you were telling lies to get away so you could gamble?
I think yeah, like I definitely did that. No doubt about it. Yeah, I used to pretend like I used to lend money to like and pretend that I was going out with my friends and getting some food, but I would just be on my own and like best friend at the age of 18, just chasing, walking home because I'd spent my bus fare, just mad. Like honestly, like
Yeah.
looking back, but like I was had my blinkers on. I was like so oblivious to it all. Um, and then like I continued this like for years, and like I used to go out and I used to party like all weekend, and like and just try and I think at the time I was obviously I think you party when you're young anyways, and I had some great times with some great people doing so, but a lot of it was to block out what was actually going on in my head because I didn't want to face it as well. Like I used to get a bit carried away with it. Um, and then I got in a relationship when I was 23. Um, and I think around that, maybe it's like 6, 7 months in into that relationship, I became aware that I had a gambling problem. Um,
Mm,
because it was like all I could think about. Literally like it, it uh, literally just took over. Like, and it was making us sad. I think the reason that I was aware that I had an addiction was because of my emotions towards gambling had changed.
mm,
I started to feel the sadness of it and the loss of not going out and doing stuff, and like we used to like still go out and have a good time, but like there was a bit more pressure on myself in my head that I'd like sort of than I'd ever had before. Um, and I opened up. I think it was around. It's hard to put an exact time frame in my life when I like opened up, but I opened up to her when I was 24. Maybe it's 24, 25. I'm unsure that I'd had a problem. I remember waking up that morning, and feeling like really helpless. Like I've got to tell her because the lies we'd been together like a year, and that I'd been lying for a year, and it didn't feel right, like
yeah.
I cared about it a lot. And I just woke up one day and I went to work and I was like, this is the day you have to tell her. And I went home and I told her. She was really, really supportive. We went online, we done my research, I phoned GamCare. I got blocked from online, everything online, all of the sort of local bookmakers, and I signed up to therapy back then.
Mm,
Um, and I found that difficult, because that's when I
How old were you
become
then? Like 25, did you say?
24, 25. I don't know exactly. I've tried to make a bit of a timeline with it, but my brain was like a bit like mush back then because I was only focused on one thing. So
I
yeah.
have a question around that. So you
Mhm.
said you started to put yourself under like the pressure. You were starting
I,
to feel the
I,
pressure of
I
gambling
don't.
a bit.
Yeah, I don't think I was putting myself under pressure. I think it was more. I felt a weight on my shoulders. Like I felt
And
like I was carrying. Go on. Yeah.
was that because you were chasing losses, or was that because it would become a habit that you would then felt you'd lost control over?
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of everything. I think it was the fact that I'd lost control.
Mm.
If myself, even though I'd lost it before that, I think that's when I realized that I wasn't in control. I think, what did you say again there? You prompted us.
So was it you were making because of your losses? Were you chasing
Mhm.
losses, or was it because you felt like you'd lost control of the addiction and it was taking over your life?
Yeah, I think it was definitely taking over my life. I think it was a time thing. I was thinking about how much time I was spending
Yeah.
on my phone, how much time I was spending, like not even on my phone, just thinking about it, like all of the time. Like I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I would go on at the races and just be doing research at 3 o'clock in the morning for the next day, and that's all of my time was
Mm.
consumed about just thinking about gambling.
You just become obsessed, don't you? Like
It's like
you can't escape the thought.
yeah. Yeah, it was just uncontrollable, and I think I'd reached a point in my head where I was just like, this is too much. This is too much. I need to speak. So yeah, I signed up to GAM Care. I went to therapy. I found therapy very, very, very helpful. Um, Not at the time, I would say, but
Mm.
looking back, the stuff I learned in therapy about like my childhood, and I think identifying where the problem might have stemmed from took away that feeling of it's all my fault a little bit, because it sort of gives us a understanding of why it could have, of why it's sort of where it stemmed from, and like, and it's sort of not just my fault that it's happened. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
um
I think mental health and addiction doesn't. It's not just you doing it. I also think
yeah,
it happens to you. I remember we've had a guest on previously called Tim Harkness. At the time, he was Chelsea's head of sports science and psychology, and he said that poor mental health happens to you. You don't choose it, and I
yeah,
definitely think addiction happens to you. It's external factors
yeah,
plus previous traumas slash experiences that ultimately creates this pool of pressure which needs a release in some sort of capacity. And
yeah,
as young men especially, with all of the marketing and targeting and social acceptance of gambling,
yeah,
it is an easy release for us all to turn to
yeah,
versus us talking about our feelings, because society doesn't encourage us to talk about the fact that we don't feel we had a great relationship with our dad growing up, to your
yeah, yeah,
example, or the fact that I don't know, felt constantly like I had to build new relationships and find new ways to hit endorphins, for example, like whatever that pressure is, and never dealing with it because we don't talk about it.
yeah,
Society gives us these easy ways out, like alcohol, drugs for some
yeah, yeah,
people, and then gambling. And that's why those
yeah.
addictions are so prevalent, especially in young men.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think as well, like I don't even like blame me dad for any of this, because like I think it's sort of like a generational thing as well. Like like looking back, like men like the typically in the pub, and I think that is changing a little bit now. And I think looking back, they were never encouraged to talk. And I think by
No.
being encouraged to talk, like it makes you think like about your feelings, and then like all of this sort of comes out. And it was, I think, like going back 20 years, people were just told to sort of like crack on with it and just get on with it and just keep everything like within yourself, which is absolutely mad, because from speaking to people, like, I know firsthand how helpful that's been towards my journey and getting like to where I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to opening up to my girlfriend and signing up to GAM Care, going to therapy. So I think that was at that time it was the longest stint I went without having a bet, and I had it in my head for some reason. Like, I'd heard it somewhere. Just I think it might have been word of mouth. Like, I think something about 12 weeks to break a habit, or something like that. And I had it in my head at that time. I was like, if I don't have a bet for 12 weeks, I'm cured. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm never ever going to have a bet again. I'm not even going to ever even have to think about it anymore. And I had this in my head, so I'm on my calendar, day 1, day 2, and I think I did get a 12 weeks back then. And then I just was like, right, I've done my goal. That's it.
Yeah.
And it was like, it
Just
was
back
just
to it.
like back to it, like little bits though. Like, it started like, it didn't go, I wasn't going as bad with as much money, but it was more just like little bits here and there. And then that escalated into doing it maybe once at a weekend, twice at a weekend, to then doing it on the sly again. And then all of a sudden I'm lying again without even knowing that I'm lying, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm.
you're completely oblivious to what's going on, even
Mm.
though like your conscious mind is actually doing all of this and affecting all of your relationships around you, but it's as if you have no control whatsoever. Like, it's just like you get a thought in your head, and
Impulse.
you yourself at that time, you don't even have a choice, as if it just happens. And
Yeah.
it's really sad. And like,
Yeah, I remember.
yeah, like, and like there was times after that where like I used to keep going through the motions of sort of going without a bet, and then having a bet, and then going through stages of betting, and then not betting. And it was just like, to be fair though, at the time, I I think at the time I was sort of like, I was in a better place than I was because I'd opened up about my problem, but I wasn't acknowledging that at the time, that I'd actually made a bit of progress. And I think
Mm.
that would be
Put
really
yourself down.
helpful. I think that would be really helpful for anybody listening, if they're going through a bit of a journey and they're at an early stage of the journey. If, like, try and in the have made a little bit of progress like I did at that time, I think it would be important to sort of recognize that that is just part of the journey, and it's okay that you're relapsing at that time. At least you're making the effort to make the change, and you're actually on the right path at that time. Even though I thought there was sort of no return, and I thought I was letting myself down all of the time, I actually wasn't. That was the start of like my journey to sort of recovery, and it doesn't happen overnight. You have to have these sort of slip ups. I don't know about your journey and how relatable that sort of thing is to what you've went through, Lou, but
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying. So I can be honest, I've not ever relapsed. Um,
yeah, really,
and
that's
yeah, no, I
amazing.
haven't. I don't know if it's amazing. I don't know because I've got a question. I'll answer your question, but I have a question for you first.
Hmm.
Do you consider yourself still in recovery?
Um, yeah, I think it's something I'm always going to have to be conscious of in my life,
Hmm.
especially when something traumatic might happen. I have to be aware. So yeah, I probably would say yes. It's because it's a cognitive behavior, isn't it? So I think it's somewhere in your brain, like,
Hmm.
is a comfortable place to go. Even though I very rarely ever have thoughts of gambling anymore, and I try and do the things I do to prevent having them thoughts. I know what trigger it. I know what I can do to feel good about myself now, which we'll touch on in a little bit later on.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think I would say that. How do you feel about that question?
It's a great question. Mine is definitely yes. I don't have to think
Mm,
about it. And I consciously think I'm going to be in recovery for the rest of my life
yeah.
because I got to a point, and we haven't gone to your your darkest place yet. I don't think. Well, maybe we have.
No,
I don't know.
we
Yeah,
definitely haven't.
to my darkest place. Obviously, I for over 2 months, 100% didn't want to be here. Thought about killing
Yeah,
myself every day for over 60 days. So that was so. I feel like that scarred my brain to
yeah,
think I can't even open the opportunity of potentially getting in myself into that situation again, because I really have to protect
yeah,
me and my brain and my thoughts. I think when it comes to what you were saying around you lose control
yeah,
and you don't even have time to think from impulse action.
yeah,
Mine was getting so bad, like I was borrowing money or lying or whatever I was doing, and
yeah,
impulse gamble, impulse. I wasn't thinking at all with any clarity of thought, and
yeah,
I'm really fearful that the neural pathways in my brain where my addiction is, and I've read so much about this, that those channels of impulse are still there,
yeah,
irrespective of my conscious brain saying I don't want to do this, and I just remove myself from the ability to be able to do that. And that was a big thing I learned in therapy. So I was
yeah,
in therapy for over a year, some through a charity and then some private, because I needed to figure out what the fuck my brain was doing. And for me, it was the big lesson I got was trying to where you said, and it's a really good point, with an impulse to action, when you're in full addict mode, there's no time lapse. So what I consciously do all the time now is create the time lapses in my head. So there's still times where
yeah,
I might think, "Oh my god, I just want to win the lottery," or "Oh my god, I just want to
yeah,
like I see a car raffle and I'm like, oh, I want to win that Aston
yeah,
Martin," and I just
yeah. And
create.
that's like it all comes down to like advertisement in society, doesn't it? It's
It's
put in
everywhere.
front of you. It's put in front of you, like probably on a daily basis. You would say, like,
Especially if you watch football.
yeah,
Yeah,
Football,
I
it's
know,
every
hourly
advert.
basis.
Yeah, every football advert is
yeah,
Bet365, Sky Bet, Paddy Power, and they're so good at making you think, wow, that's such compelling content. I'm so
yeah.
interested in that. That's funny. Oh my God, gambling's fun. This is good. When
Even
actually it's
those, sorry,
They're like they're
oh, mate.
like even they even research into like the colors that your brain react to and everything like that to make you like you feel enticed. It's the the psychology like aspect behind it is crazy, and it
well, like
Yeah.
they're even
gone.
doing their best boosts now, aren't they? Like the ones to like get you on there because it's a tenner and it's pretty much the land nearly all the time, don't they? Like sell a shot on target and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
that's just to
Get you
get you
hooked
in the door and just put a tenner on. You're like, well, I'll just put me tenner on, but once you're in there, you end up spending more money and more money. So it is really clever, isn't
because
it?
you won. Because you
Yeah,
won.
yeah.
And I
yeah.
think that's why I asked the question to Sean earlier of do you think the risk-free betting to begin with, of you betting someone else's money, was a real problem for you at the beginning? Because that's a tactic that today's bookies use. They give you bets at odds that are really favorable
Yeah.
to entice you to start, to hopefully win,
It's
because
the
then it
feeling of
triggers
winning, isn't it?
endorphin, and then
Yeah,
the
yeah,
endorphin of, oh my God, I'm so smart. I'm now good at this. Well, I've won a tenner once. So
yeah.
I could win if I put 100, I could have won 100
Mhm.
if I put 1,000. And they're so good at hooking you in. So that's
Yeah.
probably why I asked that question.
I wonder if Sean, just when you were saying that you realised you had a problem, was your problem so much like the money you were losing and how much you were losing, or was it more what you said before about the time that you were investing into
I th-
it?
I think it was the time, and I think as well like the relate like I was like start to become conscious that this could have an effect on this relationship
Mm.
that's happening, like um yeah.
Because I've
I
always
don't
known
I,
you
I
to
don't
have
think
a,
it was a problem with money. I don't think I had any value or knowledge about how the value of money worked back
yeah,
then. I had to do that sort of work on my own and like later on in my journey. So at that time, no, I don't think it was a money thing at all.
yeah. Because I've known you for years, and I never got the idea that you, well, again, I could be wrong, but that you had heavy losses. But I know you were spending a lot of time invested in it. Because when we used to gamble, when we used to bet on the horses, I used to say to you, same with our friend Dobber, if you're only picking like specific races and stuff that you want to pick, you're actually pretty good. But it's when you're looking at these, foreign teams or these horse races, the broad,
Yeah,
because you've got nothing else to do. It's once you start chasing the boredom, you end up at, just losing.
But I think
yeah,
that's the difference between someone who can gamble safely and
yeah,
is in control of their
Yeah,
thoughts and gambling activities, and someone who is an addict. And to Sean's point earlier, that impulse to action, there's no time. You
yeah,
see an
yeah,
opportunity to gamble, and you enjoy gambling more than you enjoy winning, because
yeah,
that's what the
yeah,
brain's craving.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. So where we're at, so it was like I think we're at the point where I'd like sort of just been to therapy. I'd relapsed a few times. Um, the distance between gambling was about the same each time. Um, and through therapy, I learned about, well, I was told at the time about like triggers and things that might make me want to gamble. Like, is it advertisement? Is it having a bad day? Is it something that somebody said to us? Is it how I'm feeling about myself? Um, and I did get to a better place with it, and then sort of my uncle, who was who was like the father figure in my life. I got a phone call, um, saying that he like died suddenly,
Okay,
um,
mate.
which yeah, like that was like the toughest time of my life. Like when I think back now, it like I feel a little bit emotional. Like it just completely tipped me world upside down. Like I just couldn't cope with my emotions whatsoever. Like I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know anything about dealing with bereavement or anything like that. And it just got too much. Like I've never ever felt that low. And the first thing I did was like I just wanted to put a bet on, just wanted to put a bet on, just wanted to put a bet on. I was angry. I was I was I don't even know what was going on. Like wasn't myself. And I think this is when I really, 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 really lost me personality, lost who this is when I felt like I lost me identity. Like didn't even know who I was anymore. Like
Mm.
like even like looking back, I still had my personality before this. And I was still joking and laughing. Some of it was definitely like a sort of like a smoke screen to what was going on inside, because I think that happens. But at this point, it was just like I felt like rock bottom. Um, and I went back to the therapy, and I learned about bereavement. It's had like I think it just it was just so fucking difficult, man. Like I just couldn't believe he'd gone, and like little things like not being able to say goodbye, like saying how upset my mum was.
so you only lived
Um,
next door to your mum as well, didn't you? So they
yeah,
are
well,
really, really close.
I seen him every day in my life, like until I
Mm.
moved out. And this just, I can't even talk about the emotions because I don't want to get too upset, like, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was just whole world blew upside down, like really, really difficult. Um,
No, I fully understand that, and I have a slight question on that. Don't worry, I won't pry
no,
on
no, 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 you
your
know what,
account.
pride, but it's okay.
I think my question's probably around up until that point. Do you feel you had ways of coping with stress in your life other than gambling? How did you used to cope with stress?
Food,
Yeah.
food. Like alcohol, I would say as well. Like at times, I've never had like an alcohol addiction. I'd never think, but when I drank, it wasn't to socialize. It was more
To
to drink
suppress.
and to suppress and to like to drink and get get drunk as quickly as I could. My relationship with alcohol back then wasn't great, and I was drinking for the wrong reasons. I felt, like, yes, you are drinking in a group to have a good time, but the way I was drinking and my relationship with alcohol probably wasn't the right thing to do back then.
Mm. And
Um,
when you'd had other stressful moments in your life prior to that, so prior to even as a child, do you remember at all how you used to deal with stress, or was it the football part and taking your
I
aggression out?
think, yeah, I think the football definitely. I loved football so much as a kid, and
Mhm,
I wasn't able to sort of gamble every day,
mhm.
because it was just that once a week once I got to 12. But I think with football, you'll know from playing with us, I'm quite like an aggressive player, and like that is how I release. Like,
You basically make me look good. That's what we're saying.
yeah, I do all the dirty work, Lou.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks. Mate.
But yeah, and I enjoy doing that. I enjoy winning the ball back. I enjoy winning a header. And I think like looking at them sort of traits as a footballer, you need
Mhm,
to be aggressive to do that. And I think that's where I do get my aggression out. Yeah.
yeah. And throughout the therapy up to
hmm
this point, so before your uncle, was it something where you had talked about dealing with stress and dealing with pressure? Were they things that you talked about? Do you remember?
Um, there probably would have been, yeah, but like back then, I can't really remember
Yeah.
how I would have approached that.
Mhm,
Um, I think I dealt with all of these things like after that.
mhm.
Like probably more recently, like in the last maybe like 3 years, maybe
Yeah.
like looked at things a little bit differently. Once I started educating myself about like habits, that's when I started really looking at my stress and being aware that like stress was one of my triggers. Yes, I did learn in therapy that stress was a trigger for gambling, but
Mhm.
I never looked at it and approached that sort of trigger and thought, how can I reduce that at that time?
Yeah.
It was just like as if it was a seed was planted back then, but I
Mhm.
didn't nurture the seed until like years later. But it was really important that that seed was planted looking back, because I might never have realized that and never have nurtured it. But I think I didn't really acknowledge that stress was a trigger until later on and done like acted upon it then. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Complete sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
So then after that, so like went through a really difficult time. Like I think it was just after my uncle died. I think it was 27 when my uncle died, and I think we went into the COVID. Maybe it would have been the March after that year.
Mhm.
And I think COVID like really, really, really affected me. This is when I was losing myself, and I think the first few months of losing my uncle, I was really angry. But then through COVID, not going to work every day and not socializing, this is when I lost my personality, like being in the house and not communicating with people as much and not leaving the house and not wanting to leave the house. It got to the point where I was scared to go and have a conversation with somebody. Like I wouldn't really want to go to the shop. I wouldn't want to do anything like that. And like I think all of these things looking back now are all signs of like depression. Um
Yeah.
but but yeah, COVID didn't help towards me losing myself, but COVID helped towards me gambling. It really, really did. Uh, and I don't know if it was because I lost myself that I acted to look to make positive changes, but
Mhm.
it made us think about my situation. Like I remember I went into COVID with I think it was £8,000 worth of debt. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know I had it at the time. In all honesty, I knew it was there in the background in my subconscious mind somewhere, but I just wasn't bothered. Um, and I just sat down and I wrote everything down that I owed out, and I was like, right, this is my only opportunity to sort of like get this paid. I'm not going out anymore. I can't go out. I'm in the house. I'm still working. I'm still getting me pay, me commission. Um, and and I can't really spend my money. There's nothing to gamble on because there's no horse racing because it's COVID. This is your time to start sorting yourself out a little bit. Financially sorting myself out at that point. I wouldn't say mentally sorting myself out, and no sort of attempt. It was just right. This debt's been sitting at the back of my mind for a long time. If I get rid of this, it's going to make us feel a little bit better. So I set a goal to pay like £1,000 a month off, and it was gone within 8 months. And
Love that, mate. Well done.
I
Class.
never and since then, I've never gotten any debt since. Like I started to save money, and then I got a little bit of money from my uncle dying, so that went into the bank, and then I got a dog. And honestly, like,
The best little dog in the world.
yeah, you both know how emotionally attached I am to my dog. Like, I do
Yeah.
absolutely everything with him. But honestly, he's been a massive part in my sort of my recovery and finding like to be more positive as a person. But yeah, so and then that I was living in Heaton at the time, and then me and my ex-partner were moved down to the coast, which was really, really exciting. Do you know what? Actually, at the time, I was like, I was excited, but I was nervous because like I was really, really attached to my mum, like I think it's probably important I talk about this actually because my mum became. I could speak for an hour about how much of a wonderful person my mum is. Like my mum,
I have definitely heard you speak for more than an hour how much you love your mum, which is
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, everyone at work has as well. I talk about my mum a lot. Like she's done what she's done for me. Like I think because she thought she couldn't have kids, then a miracle Shaun popped up at 36. And I think a mixture of bringing her up in a house on her own sort of made her want to suffocate us with sort of like love a little bit and give
Yeah.
us everything that she could and I understand it, and she literally like looking back, she sacrificed her life for me because I would get really upset if she was going out when I was really young, so she wouldn't go out. She would never go out with her friends. She would just stay and want to look after me because she couldn't deal with the fact that I was upset,
Yeah.
which I really, really respect. But looking back now, I think that sort of had an impact on my independence a little bit as well. And I've sort of like always had a mother figure in my life. So like I think what happened, my mum was there, and then I never went and lived on my own or anything like that. And then I met my ex-partner, and then I went and lived with her. And then guess what? She takes that role, of like the washing, the tidying up, the
Oh
the
God.
only child syndrome, and like it was it must have been a lot. And yeah, me and my ex-partner, we moved to Whitley Bay, and I think we were in there a year,
Yeah.
and then we broke up. And I think, sorry, I'm going backwards and forwards. Yeah.
That's all right.
We broke up in I think the August, which was 2 years ago, and I was at that time I hadn't had a bet for 6 months, so my last bet was on the 8th of May 2022. And when we broke up, I like honestly, I've never had such a surreal thought in my head of like how my future could look. And I honestly at that time I had two choices. Like I thought I've got this road here, I can go down this road, and I can just go down the easy road and do all the things that your brain's telling you to do. Do you want to go? You want to go and gamble? That's all you can think about. But honestly, like I've never felt suicidal myself. But I thought and I knew if I went down there, that's how I would end up feeling. Um, and I knew there was another road to go down, the long road and the bumpy road and the really, really, really difficult road of looking inside of yourself and figuring out who you are, who you want to be, and what all of these things that have happened to you, your triggers, you're going to have to deal with all of this, all of this road. And I chose to go down that one. And I think that started off by the only way I could block my triggers out about gambling at that time was by exercise. And I think I shut myself off from, I had an unhealthy relationship with exercise at this time, and I think I shut myself off from the world completely. Like, I didn't go out, I didn't do anything, I just went to the gym and ate well, and just started trying to make some positive changes in my life. So this is like 2 years ago, and I started to feel like a little bit better. I was really sad at the time, and I think the thought of being on my own was really, really difficult. But like, looking back, I needed to gain my own independence for myself. It was really, really important, and I didn't see that back then. But looking back now, I'm like, it's. I feel so much more happy within myself because I feel like I've earned something within myself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, like and then I think I exercised from the August until the December without doing any reading or anything like that. And then I started thinking, right, how is it that I can grow a little bit more? How is it that I can learn something about myself a little bit more? So I set myself a goal in 2023 to just read 12 self-care books. So it was just one a month. So, and I'd never ever read a book in my life. And honestly, the first book I picked up couldn't have been a better book.
What was it?
Honestly, for where I was in my life at that time, I honestly think someone just put that book in front of me. It was Atomic Habits
Atomic
by
Habit, yeah.
I think James
James
Clear,
Clear.
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's upstairs,
And it
actually. I would have showed it.
Yeah, and it was just so relatable, like, and it made us think, and that's when I started sort of thinking about my emotions, and okay, I feel sad today. What is it? First of all, is it something that I control? Is it something I can control why I feel sad? So what is it that I've done yesterday? Sort of like a mental sort of diary of what I've done the day before, or who I've spoken to, or just something I've done the past day. So I feel a bit sad. What is it I feel sad about? Um, and then it made us think about my habits. So like, I'm eating well, it's making us feel better. I'm walking the dog every morning, it's making us feel better. And then I started to note the things down that were making us feel good. And when I
Yeah.
started writing them down, that's when it hit us. It was like, right, okay, that's what makes you feel good at the moment. Do that.
So do you think that it was quite important to not only do the thing that made you feel good, but acknowledge the thing that made you feel good? To
Yeah,
almost like,
because
it's not just the
for four
feeling, it was the
months,
thinking too, and change your mentality.
for 4 months, I wasn't doing it knowing that was feeling good. I was doing it just to not gamble. That's the only reason I was exercising, because it was the only thing that I could do to stop gambling. But then when I started reading about habits and getting a bit of knowledge about mental health and why your brain works in certain ways and how a habit's created, and then I started to link my emotions to the habit and, right, okay, how is it that I can create some habits that are going to give me a more positive life?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then ever since then, I've been sort of just that's just been like sort of growing and like escalating, and I've been feeling better. I've been dealing with me sort of emotions a lot better. Like, yes,
Wow.
I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm happy all of the time, because that is not true. But when I do feel sad, I acknowledge that I'm sad, and I have things in place like exercise, like hiking, like getting out, like cooking, all these positive things that I know it'll not replace the sadness, but just help with the sadness. Take me brain off the sadness for maybe that moment. And then you're not. I feel like by doing that, you're not as sad as long as you would be by potentially having a habit that is having a negative impact on your life.
Hmm.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question around that.
Yeah,
So I'll say a statement first, and then I have a question. So firstly, I will say, and Dean will definitely back me up here. You are the most stubborn little shit in the world when it comes to you only doing what is good for you and your mentality, right?
yeah.
We try and convince you to come and do something social or do something
Mhm.
with us. If you are adamant you are not doing it,
Can
there's
I just
not one.
can I just interrupt for a second, okay?
Of course you can. Of course you
The,
can.
the, there's a reason. There's a reason
Yeah.
that I
No,
think
it's a
like
compliment here. There's a compliment.
no. There's a reason that I'm like that, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I've spent all of my life, adult life,
Yeah.
well, most of my adult life, up until I've been on this sort of positive journey, whatever you want to call it, okay? I've
Yeah.
spent all of my life putting everybody's emotions before myself,
Yeah.
okay? And
Yeah.
I said to myself, yes, it's nice. All of my friends used to come to me for advice and for emotional stuff because I've like,
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's fine. But like I said to myself, you need to take care of yourself before you take care of others, and
Hmm.
that's one of the biggest sort of steps in my journey, because I feel like the relation me I thought when I was younger by taking care of others before myself was the best thing to do. But
Hmm.
actually, as I got older, I realized if you take care of yourself first, you end up having a better relationship with the people that matter to you, anyways.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
100%. And you know this is something that's in my head, and that's
Yeah,
why you're saying it because we talk about this all of the time.
yeah,
And what I'll say is, I'll continue my point. Is you are the most stubborn, and I'll repeat it again, little shit. When we want to do something with you, you can
yeah.
even say yes until 3 hours before and go, nah. Do you know what? I need some me time, or I need to do what's best for me, and I am so respectful and like not envious isn't the word, like inspired by the fact you can do that because me and Dean are
I'll
the
just slag you off,
opposite.
me.
I'm not really
I'm
bothered,
not
Me-
mate.
respectful at all.
I don't really care at all.
no, but I don't have that. Like, so what you've just said there is so powerful that you look after yourself so you can be better for the people potentially that you care about. Because actually, if you're not being protecting your own thoughts and emotions, then how could you ever try and help others? Because it's a detriment to yourself. Now, I'm going to ask you a question I've asked you 100 times, and you'll tell me,
Mhm.
Lewis, you've got to go through it because this is what you tell me. Um, how? What was the? What and how was the mentality shift to go from being the guy who would be there for everyone? How did you get to that mentality? Like, what was that? Because
I
it's
think it
definitely
was.
something
I,
I
I
don't
think
have.
I think it was the. I think it's because of. I think it was the independence. Like
Hmm.
I've never ever been independent in my life, and I
Yeah,
think, do you know, from everything you're saying, I think I probably need to chill out with it a little bit at times, and I need to have more of a balance with it. And maybe that's something I have to work on, but I don't feel like I have to at the moment.
yeah,
But I feel like the independence, because I knew I wasn't independent, my brain just went into tunnel vision into being
the other way.
independent, and because I was so unhappy on in my own person, my main focus was to be happy within myself. And I think the way I looked at getting happy within myself was to spend as much time on my own as possible. Like, so, like, what I like to do, I go hiking. I go hiking solo. I travel. I've done a lot of traveling solo. And just set myself little goals while I do these things. You know, like I used to really struggle with talking to people. You might not ever recognize that, and other people might not recognize that. But at the time, I used to worry about what I was saying to people. So I used to set myself goals to just go and speak to 5 strangers and just have a conversation with them, and just to try and grow my confidence in different areas in my life where I felt like they needed to grow.
Yeah,
And
no, it's good.
yeah,
So within all of your, because I see it all the time, and again, we have lots of conversations about things, and your path is your path, my path is my path,
yeah,
Dean's path is a quiet path,
yeah,
and it's one of those where when you look at where you are today, and you think about, obviously joining the podcast is one thing that
yeah.
you've looked at your experience and you want to share that experience to try and help others on their journey.
hmm
But when you reflect back on that experience with gambling, how does it make you feel?
It makes us feel it, it makes us feel sad but proud at the same time,
Hmm.
because like people, addiction is a serious thing. Like it really, really is. It's so powerful, and the things that it does to your brain, and how like it makes it sad that I lost myself for such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Um, and but it makes us really proud that like I've done all of the hard work and learned so much about myself, which is not an easy thing to do, to where I am now. And I think that's added fuel to me having like what I would say is successful life, but a happy life.
Hmm.
Um, and excited for my future, and more like, because I've spent a lot of my time in my life being like depressed, you might put it, but now I don't feel like that, and I just feel like I've got this amazing life to live.
Yeah.
Yes, I have dark days. Everybody has dark days, but there's just light at the end of the tunnel for people if they put the work in.
Hmm.
And by speaking up, by saying that you're not feeling well, um, like there's low like, like if I could go back, if I could talk to my younger self now,
Hmm.
and like if I could talk to my younger self now and give myself advice, like me back then, to what I know now, it would be I think it's important that people realize that there's nothing to be ashamed about, and
Hmm.
there's actually a lot more support around you than you actually think's there. Because when you think you're going through that addiction, it's the most embarrassing thing to ask anyone for help. But it's much
Yeah, it is.
better. It's much better if you go and get help rather than letting something spiral into something worse. You know,
Hmm.
um, in
I have a couple
whatever
of
it is.
questions on that.
Yeah.
Do you think you would, firstly, do you think you would have listened? So you were 16, starting to gamble properly yourself. Do you think you would have listened to 31-year-old Shaun?
I wouldn't have, but a seed would have been planted in my head at that
Okay.
time, and I might have paid more attention to it, like earlier on in my life, potentially.
Yeah. And second question. So I know you, and I know that you have a good life in terms of you are content and you're happy and you do the things
Mm,
you enjoy, and you definitely aren't gambling now like that. It's not taking over your life. There's nothing like that going on. Do
yeah.
you think you would be in the happy, content place that you are today if you didn't go through the experience that you went through?
It's hard to answer, isn't it? Like, yeah, I think I probably, yeah, I think I probably would. Yeah, because I would have probably studied. I would have probably, um, I would have probably went on, if I didn't gamble and didn't have that problem in my life, then I would have probably probably felt happiness and more happiness than I did in my 20s than I did then. But I think at the same time,
Hmm.
there's a part of us that appreciates me happiness a lot more now and appreciates
Okay.
happiness in general because of the sadness. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
it, and it's like it makes you think: do you regret it? Do you not regret it? And I don't think you should. I think you should look at it and you know what, like, that is my journey.
Hmm.
I'm proud of what I've done and where I am now. You know.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's. I don't think you could have answered that any better,
Yeah.
personally. But my other point there, though, was as much if it wasn't gambling, when you look back at your experience, because a lot of it was potentially not dealing with stress and not dealing with how your emotions. Do you think potentially it could have been alcohol or it could have been other things?
Well, yeah.
And do you
I
think your
mean,
crux was gambling because it
yeah.
gave you
Are you
some
sort
way
of saying
to?
like if gambling didn't exist
Yeah, could
and
it have
you
been
had
something
another,
else because you
if
hadn't dealt with your
yeah,
emotions?
I would
Yeah.
imagine it would have, and I think yeah, like it's yeah,
Be- be-
definitely one
because
hundred percent.
because when I look back at mine, I think that I think very much gambling was a route out of feeling how I felt.
Yeah,
But actually, there's been times in my life, and you've even said it around alcohol, it was a suppressant to how you feel.
yeah,
And it easily, and this is for people who potentially have addictions or struggles in their life, and it might not be gambling. It could be alcohol, could be drugs, could be porn, could be, I don't know. Even some people are massively addicted to doing crazy big runs
yeah.
and doing
I
that
think
to
I'm
escape
heading in
their
that direction, to be honest.
exactly to escape their emotions and escape how
Yeah,
they're feeling. And is it ultimately finding way? Is the lesson ultimately to find ways to deal with your emotions and understand them, but also channel the way in which you deal with your emotions and understand them into something that has a net positive in your life?
yeah, definitely. Um, and I think you can like sometimes like at the moment in my life I'm thinking about me. I love exercising. I love lifting weights because I feel like lifting weights gives us confidence, and I love running
Hmm.
because running clears any fogginess that I have in my head. And they both give us different things, but I spend a lot of my spare time sort of exercising,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes like there's just a thought in my head like should you live a little bit more of a balanced life, and I don't know if that's where I'm going. And like recently, like I went through stages where I didn't drink alcohol for like I used to drink, I think for the past few years I've probably drank alcohol probably on, I'd be able to count on two hands
Hmm.
in like maybe 2 years of times when I've had like drunk with friends back here other than traveling.
Hmm.
um but now I'm at a point where like I've been having a few beers recently, and you know what, like I think I was scared to drink alcohol because I was worried about. I automatically thought in my own head that I still had the same relationship with alcohol that I did when I was 26, going through this crisis in my life. But now I've been actually enjoying going out and having a few beers and socializing, and I think it's just adding to my personality a little bit more. So I am trying to find a little bit more of a balance in my life and not just doing everything like exercise related, because it's making us feel good when I'm out socializing a little bit more now. And I am
Hmm.
speaking to yourselves. I am watching the match with a few years on a Sunday. And it sometimes with me though as well, it doesn't have to be alcohol. I can come
No,
and
I agree.
yeah, I come and watch the match with you, and if I want a Diet Coke, I'll have a Diet Coke, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I am finding a little bit more balance in my life, and it feels good to get there and have. And I'm really proud of the relationships that I have towards these things. Like it's more of a social aspect rather than a hide your emotions. And I think touching on that as well, it's really, really like important to reflect on like how actually well you're doing now and look at some positives that's going on in your life, because I
Hmm.
think sometimes you can get trapped into this chase, chase, chase. Like, what is next? What is next? What is next? And the next thing you know, your life's over. You've got a
Yeah.
50 and all you've been doing throughout your life is just chasing this next thing in your life. What is my next source of happiness? What is my next goal to hit, without stopping and actually acknowledging, like,
I'm so
I'm
grateful for what
I'm
I have.
I'm I'm in a really, really, really good place at this moment in time. Not every day, but at this moment in time, I'm in a really, really good place, and I'm really, really grateful that I have I've had an opportunity to improve my relationships with people.
Yeah.
I'm really, really grateful. Little things. I'm massive on gratitude. So little things like saying I'm really grateful I've got my legs. Some people in this world do not like struggle to
Don't have
walk
legs.
and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like the simple things bring you the most important things in your life, and that's one thing I've learned.
Hmm. Yeah, we talk about that, and there's probably as we start to head to end the episode, I really want to end it on some of the amazing things you do to protect and manage your health. And
Hmm.
there's things you've mentioned like exercise,
Hmm.
reading,
Yeah,
cooking, which ultimately means diet.
yeah,
Set yourself goals. But could you just talk a little bit about the things that you do and have done that have
yeah.
helped you to get into this mindset and be in the positive place where you are?
Yeah, I've wrote a little bit of a list because there's literally that many. I'll try not to read them all out.
Also, what on some of them, think why and
Yeah,
how that they impact you.
yeah. So I think um, writing stuff down, that's been absolutely huge for me, and I've been to therapy recently when I got back from traveling because I was struggling to adjust back into life,
Hmm.
um, and struggling to make decisions like whether to buy a property, whether to go back and go back away and do another big stint. Um, just really, really struggling with whether I was like really happy with my job, which I am happy again now because it gives us income to go and do little bits of traveling. But writing stuff down, I was the type where I used to have all of these emotions towards an important decision in my life going around in my head,
Hmm.
and it used to eat up a lot of my energy because I had nowhere to release them, and I was just going around in this circle, this vicious circle with your emotions. But by writing stuff down about how you're feeling and pluses and negatives to each situation, and then it allows you to sort of make the right decision because you can look at it and think, okay, and also it gets it out your head so you stop thinking about it. And when you stop thinking about something, things naturally just become a little bit more clearer to you, and you don't. I think sometimes you don't have to make a decision right there, right at that moment. You can take your time with it, and things will just come to you in the right time. So
Hmm.
writing stuff down has been absolutely huge. Um, I've got loads. When I went through a stage of like feeling low and like I didn't like myself as a person, I used to listen to affirmations, like I don't know if you have heard of them, but like just before I went to bed, because I read in a book that like saying good things to and positive things to your subconscious mind, you carry that on and eventually you start to think more positively. So I think
Yeah.
if anyone would like to give that a go, there's loads of stuff like that on Spotify. Podcasting, once again, just from an educational point of view, learning more about people's situations, learning that it's okay to talk about the tough times in your life. And
Hmm.
I've gratitude, well, I've already covered that.
There's one
Uh,
thing that you told me, and it's
mhm.
an Instagram thing you have.
Yeah, okay.
I think this is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, yeah. So I've never really been big on social media, and I still have this question with myself at the moment, like, is it good for us? Is it not good for us? My
Yeah, I do
relationship's
too.
definitely better with it now, but I think I'll always struggle to get rid of my Instagram because when I was going when I was going through my bit of my journey of feeling a bit more positive, I knew there was going to be times where I felt negative, and there's a lot of inspirational like quotes and stuff like that on there that remind you that you're actually doing a good job, and it's normal to feel sad at times. So I
Hmm.
have like this archive on Instagram, like me save files where if I am feeling a little bit low and not myself, I normally just go in there and just read through a few posts, like a few positive posts, and it really, really helps towards making us feel like, you know what, it's normal to feel like this, it's okay, and tomorrow is a new day sort of thing. And I've found by doing that, it's sort of really like it really shortens the time that you're actually down. Because
Yeah.
then that sort of thing, it's positive, it makes you feel better, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that one. And it's something that sometimes all it takes is a little bit of positivity or a slight change of perception of how you feel to alter how you actually feel. So I
Yeah.
love the fact you have something so personal because the quotes will mean something to you in some aspect,
Yeah.
but something that is a real tool you can use at any time, no matter how you're feeling, to give you
Yeah.
a little
It's always
bit of
there.
inspiration. Yeah.
And I think the fact me knowing that it's always there as well, it's just like, you know, like you've
It's a
already
safety
sort of,
blanket.
yeah, it's already there, you know, it feels good.
Yeah, I
And
love
it
that.
makes the situation of feeling sad like less stressful and less like, "Oh, why am I so sad?" Like it's okay to be sad. It's actually really important to be sad, I think, at times, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um, Next one would be in terms of you mentioned Mario, and I
yeah.
think he deserves.
Oh,
Sorry, me and Dean are both flashing that up. That I was flashing it up, he was flashing it down. I was flashing it down. That from Dave. Thanks, Dave, for commenting. We really appreciate it, mate. By the way, anyone watching, please share. That massively really helps us as a podcast to grow and help more people who are potentially struggling. So if you are watching, please share. We do really appreciate it. Lucy has just made a comment as well. Enjoyed watching your story so much. You should be so proud of yourself, Shaun. Keep smashing it. Lucy, we are also so proud of him. He's a fucking legend and one of our best mates. And yeah, we're so grateful to have him part of the podcast. But let's bring it back to Mario, because I think Mario is probably one of the biggest, most consistent, other than your mum,
yeah.
and bringing Mario into your life has completely changed your life.
Yeah, I think I
Let's talk
like,
about Mario.
yeah, Mario. I think what uh, for loads of different reasons, like from the smallest thing of just having to go out in the morning, although you feel like it's a chore, like you're actually doing something really good for yourself. You're starting your day off by getting yourself some fresh air rather than just leaving a bedroom and going working in a desk on a spare room, or just going straight to work, rising out of bed. You've got to be up early, you get some fresh air, it gives your brain time to think before you have to just go to work. But then obviously the emotional connection as well, it's just it's amazing. Like I'll forever ever be grateful for Mario, and I think that's why he comes absolutely everywhere with us. You know,
Yeah,
from the times at the
I think
pub, it has to be a dog friendly pub for Mario.
it's
yeah,
important to say as
it's
well,
the
like
rule.
you never had dogs growing up, did you? So
I
like
was scared
Mario
of
was
dogs.
like a very first dog. Yeah, I remember when you
I
were
was
thinking
I,
about
I
getting
was
him and
I
you're
was
ringing us.
really really scared of dogs, and yeah, and yeah, we got him when we lived in Heaton, and we used to walk through Heaton Park and go, "There's Mario," before we had one.
Yeah,
And then I seen him, and I was just like, I made it. I found him online, and I already knew he was going to be my dog before I even went to see him. I just was like, "That is the one,"
oh,
and
I love that
he's the
so much,
best.
right?
He's the best. He literally is. I could sit here and talk about my dog all day. We
I
could
know.
do an episode on my mum and my dog if you wanted.
Yeah, but maybe that is a future episode. What I would say is, so obviously is he your son? Is he your brother? Who knows?
He's my son.
He's
Yeah,
your
his
son,
son.
right?
He's
Yeah.
definitely my son.
He's
Yeah,
definitely your son, right? We'll
yeah, yeah.
commit on son. What
I call
I
him
think
son.
you got. I think the purpose point was really important, forces you to get up and things, but also when you have there's the purpose, but it's also making sure even on your dark days that routine to go, oh shit, I have to get. We were actually talking about this on the weekend, weren't we?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
sometimes having a dog is amazing, and sometimes we all think, can I be asked to walk them? But you have to. Like, you literally don't have a choice. You have to walk your dog unless you're Dean. And
Yeah.
it's one of those.
You walk
Did
it
we nearly
forward.
get a bite? Oh, we nearly got a bite. But it's one of those where having a reason to do things, and not everyone can get a dog, but creating reasons in your life to do things by even setting goals, that can be a reason to get up and do something that you say you're going to do. And I think that's really important when you're on any sort of form of recovery, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think consistency is the key in the small things, and I think as well, like, just another point, like, I think a problem that I had in the past is I was too hard on myself, and I was sort of everything had to be 100%, and I always like strove towards perfection. Like, it has to be perfect, and nothing is perfect. Like, nothing. There's and that's another thing that I've learned, like, to stop striving towards perfection and to
Yeah.
stop comparing myself to others. Like, your journey is your journey, and it should be the things that you value as a person, and things are important to you, not because someone else values them doesn't mean that that's right for you, because everybody has their own stuff going on, everyone has
Yeah.
their own sort of version of life.
Yeah. I feel like you were talking directly to me there, given the conversations we have. But
No, it wasn't necessarily. I
no,
just
no,
think
it's
I think
exaggerating.
I went through that. I went through that as well in part of
Yeah.
my recovery as well, because thinking, and I think social media and Instagram, you can look and you can think, wow, these live a perfect life. Look at all these amazing pictures of everyone being happy all of the time, and it contributes to you feeling, well, why am I not happy all the time? And it's not actually like that in anybody's life ever.
Yeah, it's not real at all, is it?
No.
No. Again, I'm a little bit conscious that we're getting to that end of the episode, which, firstly, I want to say before we absolutely wrap it up, mate, you have absolutely smashed this
Smashed it.
out of the
Class.
park. Like,
Thank
you
you.
have been so raw and honest with your experience and how you've thought and felt. And yeah, you should be really proud of not only your journey and experiences and all of that, but also the difference you're making and the way people relate to this. So yeah, you've absolutely smashed that, mate, for a first proper episode.
I know the nerves were so surreal, man.
And do you
Shaking
know what I said?
actually.
Do you know what I
Was
said
all
to you
right though, wasn't
before?
it?
Shaking.
What I
What?
said to you
It
before?
was,
How did you
yeah,
feel about?
it was all right, but yeah, just like it's just hard to talk about the personal stuff, but it's important to, and I think
Yeah.
it's important to send that message to people. It's
Yeah,
as hard as it is, it's the
yeah,
most important thing to do, and it will get you through tough times. Trust me.
yeah, 100%.
Class.
Dean, I'm going to give you the mic because I forgot you were on here tonight. Um,
I'm
you've
starving.
been, yeah,
I can't think about anything but food.
you've been Sean's friend for what, 8 years or something, maybe a bit longer.
Can't remember. Long
So
time.
a while. What on hearing? I know you've known Sean's story like I have. But what's your thoughts on what Sean's just done and what he
No, it's
said?
good to open up. And someone as for me being as close as we are, to hear some stuff that maybe I didn't even know. So it is important to share, and it also proves that if we were as close as what we were, and I didn't have an idea that it was to the extent of what it was. How many other people are out there hiding stuff from their friends and stuff like that. So, like you've touched on a few times, if you can just have a conversation with someone, just get the ball rolling, because just takes a conversation just to start.
Yeah, completely agree with that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for listening.
Yeah, fully agree. So thank you very much to echo Sean's words there for everyone who has listened live, but then people who will listen to this retrospectively. We do record episodes every Wednesday night, and your participation, especially with the live episodes, is really something we appreciate. If you have questions throughout episodes, we will try and answer them as we go as well, because ultimately for us, while this is a podcast for us to learn and have conversations about our own experiences, ultimately it's for you as an audience to understand other people's experiences, to maybe identify how you feel, think, and some of your own, with hopefully some helpful advice, tips, and stories that you can relate to help you on your own health journey. I did touch upon it just a moment ago about how important it is for us as a podcast that if you share, like, invite people, recommend friends to listen to the podcast, that means a lot to us, because it means ultimately we're doing what we set out as a group of mates from the Northeast who've all had various versions of fuck ups in our life, who are just trying our ultimate best to make sure that other people around the world don't feel as low as we potentially have in the past, and ultimately live the best version of their healthy life. So yes, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuned in and listened. I'm going to play that exit song according to Job, and then that will be it. So thank you very much if you stayed up this late to listen. If you catch it tomorrow, we're also grateful, and we will see you next week. Thank you.
Peace.
It's time for the Everyman Podcast. So sit back, it's time to get your brain relaxed. So tune in almost every week as we share our thoughts that it's okay to speak. It's the Everyman, but it's for everyone. Making mental health priority one. But it's for everyone, making mental health priority one.
Thank you.